A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima.
Following the sudden death of President Roosevelt in April of 1945, Vice President Truman was suddenly thrust into the presidency. Although World War II was already coming to an end, Truman was at a disadvantage in his new position because he had not been familiar with all the parts of FDR's administration, so he had a lot of catching up to do. As chief executive, though, he was able to create the National Security Council and the CIA in order to be better informed and have greater power. He kept all of FDR's appointed members initially and continued along his same path, but he ran the White House through a hierarchy system. While he was able to run a smooth and effective office, it was almost impossible to live up to the high standard that FDR had set. Therefore, as chief executive, we felt that Truman deserves an A- for his efforts. As chief legislator, President Truman had to work together with Congress to enact new laws. Although both houses and president had begun as Democrats, by the midterm elections of 1946, both houses had turned Republican, making Truman's ability to work together with Congress all the more difficult. But Truman was able to encourage laws that improved the civil rights of African American citizens and gained support for the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. However, when he tried to veto the Taft-Hartley Act, or laws that lowered income taxes, the Republican Congress responded by overturning his decisions and making them into laws. Overall, Truman was an effective leader, but his inability to work with Congress adds up to give Truman a B+ in this area. As Commander-in-Chief, the President must be an effective military leader, and for Truman this firstly meant ensuring a quick end to World War II. Believing that he would be saving millions of American lives, Truman issued the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on Japan, which quickly resulted in their surrender. Also relevant to his position, Truman pushed forward integration of the Army during this time. In 1951, the U.S. entered into the Korean War following an ideal of containing communism. As Commander-in-Chief, Truman played a key role in the Korean War, and committed the U.S. forces to a combined effort with the UN. He also later unpopularly dismissed General MacArthur when he disobeyed orders. Although Truman brought World War II to an end in America's favor, his efforts in the Korean War were not rewarded, and they could be viewed as a waste. Therefore, it seems that in this category, President Truman deserves a B+. As guardian of the economy, it was President Truman's job to try and stimulate the economy, maximize employment, and protect American business interests at home and abroad. Following the end of World War II, America was faced with an inevitable economic downturn. With all the soldiers finally home, there was a shortage of jobs, and businesses that had been producing war products now had to transition to a civilian economy. Truman tried to help by implementing his Fair Deal plan, but employment and inflation only continued to rise until the 1950s. Considering these factors, Truman deserves a grade of a C in his role as guardian of the economy. With the Republican takeover of Congress in 1946, and so many issues thrown onto the back of President Truman after succeeding one of the most beloved presidents, Truman did not seem to have very many supporters. This became obvious during his campaign in the 1948 election, when it became clear that nobody, not even his own party, really believed that he could win the presidency. But Truman never gave up. Traveling 21,000 miles and going to 250 cities all across America, he delivered over 300 speeches promising honesty and truth. In the end, it all worked out, and Truman remained president, despite what some papers printed. So for this category, it seems that Truman deserves an A- for his efforts and success. President Truman was more of a quiet, reserved man upon entering the White House. However, the situations of the time called for a strong and effective leader, and that is exactly what Truman gave his people. Delivering many famous speeches about World War II events, the Truman Doctrine, and the Korean War, Truman was known for telling people how it was, even if it meant losing some supporters and making things seem worse. Although his personality did not endear him to the millions of Americans like Roosevelt's had, President Truman was an effective speaker and head of state, making him deserving of an A- for a grade. Perhaps the most crucial role of President Truman during his presidency was that of chief diplomat. Truman was forced to make quick friends with Stalin and Churchill in order to stay on the path to a World War II victory, and he seemed to do this with ease. He not only also had to help rebuild war-torn Europe with the Marshall Plan, but he had to prevent the spread of communism through the war with his Truman Doctrine. President Truman was very effective at getting his message across to other countries, famously known for saying,
I believe that it must be the policy of the United States to support free peoples who are resisting attempted subjugation by armed minorities or by outside pressures. The free peoples of the world look to us for support in maintaining their freedom. If we falter in our leadership, we may endanger the peace of the world, and we shall surely endanger the welfare of this nation.
Although he wasn't entirely successful with his goals, Truman did help to establish the United States as a powerful nation that would risk its safety to help establish peace and freedom for all people, which has still stayed true to this day. For his excellent maneuvers and ability to establish himself and his ideals, President Truman deserves an A. As someone who wore glasses from the age of 8 years old, Truman's glasses became an essential part of his image. They were very stylish and established him as a smart and worthy president. Therefore, for this category, we give him an A+.